The night was quiet but not peaceful. Outside, the streets were empty, covered with shadows and the soft hum of streetlights. Inside a small house at the end of the lane, a man sat at a table covered with unpaid bills. His name was Daniel. He was 35, a single father, and he looked much older than his years. His hands were rough from long hours of work. His eyes were tired, red from lack of sleep. Every night was the same. He came home from his job at the factory, tried to make dinner for his daughter, and then sat down to do the math that never added up. Daniel was a good man, but life had been cruel to him. His wife had passed away 3 years ago, leaving him alone to raise their only child, little Emma. Since then, the house had felt empty, even when Emma was laughing. Without her mother, everything was harder. Cooking, cleaning, helping with homework, paying the bills. It all fell on Daniel's shoulders. He worked hard, but his wages were small. Sometimes he skipped meals so Emma would have enough. Sometimes he wore old shoes with holes just so she could have a new coat in winter. He never complained, not out loud. But inside, he carried a storm. That night, Emma was asleep in her small room. Her school bag was by her bed, her drawings taped to the wall. She was only 7, yet she carried her own sadness. She missed her mother. She saw her father's tired face and asked questions he couldn't answer. "Daddy, why are you always sad? Why don't we go on holidays like other kids? Why can't you rest?" Daniel never knew how to reply. He just smiled, kissed her forehead, and said, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Daddy's strong." But the truth was different. Every day felt like walking through mud. Every night felt like drowning in silence. On this night, after Emma went to sleep, Daniel sat in the kitchen with a cup of cold coffee. He rubbed his eyes, staring at the pile of papers. Red letters shouted at him, "Overdue, final notice, payment required." He whispered to himself, "How much longer can I do this?" The clock ticked slowly. Midnight was near. The world outside was silent except for the wind pushing against the windows. The house creaked as if it too was tired. Daniel leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and thought of his wife. He remembered her laugh, the way she made even the darkest days brighter. He whispered her name like a prayer. "Sarah." But no prayer was answered, only silence. His thoughts were heavy, but they were broken suddenly. Knock, knock, a sound at the door. Daniel froze. Who would come this late at night? He stood slowly, his chair scraping the floor. His heart beat faster. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was just the wind. But then again, knock, knock. It came again, louder this time. Daniel's chest tightened. For a moment he thought of ignoring it. No good news ever came at midnight. But then he remembered Emma sleeping in the next room. If someone was outside, he needed to know. He couldn't risk danger coming near her. He walked quietly to the door. His hands trembled as he reached for the knob. He whispered to himself, "It's probably nothing. Just a neighbor, maybe." But in his gut he felt something different, something strange. The knock stopped. Now there was only silence on the other side. Daniel hesitated. He looked through the small window beside the door, but the porch light was dim. All he saw was a figure, a shadow standing still. His breath caught. Whoever it was, they weren't leaving. He thought about waking Emma, but no. Better she stay asleep. He unlocked the door slowly, the sound loud in the quiet house. His hand shook as he pulled the door open. The cold night air rushed in. And there she was. An old woman stood on his doorstep. But she was no ordinary woman. Her clothes were torn, silver and strange, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Her skin was pale, almost shining, and her eyes were not human. They glowed with a soft, unnatural light like 2 tiny stars. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The woman swayed as if she might fall. Her voice was soft, trembling. "Please," she whispered. "I need shelter." For a long moment, Daniel could not speak. His mind screamed at him, "She's not normal. This is not safe. Close the door. Protect your child." But something in her eyes stopped him. They were tired, desperate, filled with pain. She looked not like a monster, but like someone who had run far, someone who had nowhere else to go. The night around them felt heavier. The wind pushed harder. The shadows seemed to move. Daniel felt his heart race. He had to decide, close the door and stay safe, or let the stranger in and step into the unknown. His hand tightened on the door. His jaw clenched. His choice in that moment would change everything. The night air was sharp, carrying the smell of rain. Daniel stood frozen at the doorway, his tired body stiff with fear and confusion. Before him was the strange elderly woman who did not look quite human. Her silver clothes shimmered weakly under the porch light, and her glowing eyes seemed to pierce through the shadows. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, broken only by the soft whine of the wind. The woman swayed on her feet as if she might collapse. Her voice came again, soft like the rustle of dry leaves. "Please, let me in." Daniel's first thought was to shut the door. He wanted to protect his daughter, to keep the unknown outside. Every part of him screamed that this was danger, that this was wrong. Yet when he looked into her glowing eyes, he saw not a threat but sorrow. She looked weak, almost broken, like someone carrying a weight too heavy to bear. Against his better judgment, Daniel opened the door wider. The woman stepped in slowly, each movement careful, as though the floor itself might not hold her weight. When she crossed the threshold, Daniel felt something strange. A pressure in the air, a shift, as if the house itself knew something unnatural had entered. He closed the door and locked it, his heart thumping like a drum. The woman stood in the small living room, her strange clothes catching the dim light of the lamp. Up close, Daniel saw details he had missed. Thin silver lines ran across her skin, glowing faintly like veins of light. Her hands trembled as she held them close to her chest. Who are you?" Daniel whispered, his voice dry. The woman's eyes lifted slowly as if the answer was heavy. She didn't reply. Instead, she looked around the room. At the faded couch, the toys scattered on the floor, the photographs of Emma taped to the wall. For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips, but it faded quickly. Daniel's nerves grew tighter. He wanted to shout, to demand answers, but his voice was trapped by fear. He thought of Emma sleeping in her room. What if this woman meant harm? What if she was not a woman at all? Before he could speak again, a small voice broke the silence. "Daddy?" Daniel spun around. Emma stood in the hallway, rubbing her eyes, her hair messy from sleep. She blinked at the sight of the glowing stranger and froze. Daniel rushed forward, putting himself between Emma and the woman. "Go back to bed, sweetheart," he said quickly, his voice firm. But Emma didn't move. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with wonder. She tilted her head and whispered, "She looks like the stars." The elderly stranger's glowing eyes softened. She knelt down slowly, though it looked painful, and held out her hand toward Emma. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to stop it, to grab his daughter and pull her away. But something held him still. Emma, small and innocent, stepped closer. She touched the woman's hand without hesitation. The moment their skin met, the faint glow on the woman's body brightened just a little. Daniel saw it with his own eyes. His daughter's touch seemed to give her strength. Emma smiled. "She's not scary, Daddy." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Emma, go to bed, please." Reluctantly, the child obeyed, but before she turned, the stranger whispered something. Her voice was strange, the words unlike any language Daniel had heard. Yet somehow Emma seemed to understand. She smiled, nodded, and walked back to her room calmly, as though nothing unusual had happened. Daniel was shaken. He turned to the woman, his voice rising with anger and fear. "What did you say to her?" The woman's glowing eyes met his. "I told her in duress. She will not wake until morning." Daniel's fists clenched. He hated how calm she was, how easily she spoke of his daughter. He wanted to throw her out, to demand she leave. But something inside whispered that this was no ordinary night, and this was no ordinary visitor. The woman slowly lowered herself into the old chair by the table, as if her body could not bear standing any longer. She looked weak, close to collapse. "I will not harm your child," she said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "I only ask for one night of shelter." Daniel paced across the room, his heart racing. He wanted to say no. He wanted to protect his simple, fragile life from whatever madness this was. But he looked at her again, frail, trembling, eyes filled with sorrow, and he saw something else. She looked lost. Finally, he muttered, "One night, only tonight." The woman bowed her head, whispering, "Thank you." Daniel sat at the edge of the couch, watching her like a hawk, afraid to blink. The minutes crawled by. The house was quiet again, but not peaceful. He couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen was pressing against the walls, waiting outside in the dark. The stranger closed her glowing eyes and leaned back. For a moment, she looked like any tired elderly woman, but the faint shimmer of light on her skin betrayed the truth. She was not human, not entirely. Daniel whispered under his breath, "What have I just done?" Outside, the wind howled louder. A distant flash lit the horizon. Strange, not like lightning. He stared through the window, unease twisting in his gut. He didn't know it yet, but by opening that door, by letting the stranger inside, Daniel had already stepped into a story much bigger than himself. And before the night was over, the past he thought he understood, and the future he thought was lost, would change forever. The house felt different after the stranger entered. Daniel could not explain it, but the air seemed heavier, as if the walls themselves were listening. He sat awake on the couch watching the old woman who now rested in his chair. Her eyes were closed, her breathing slow and uneven. The faint glow from her skin flickered, dimming like a candle in the wind. At times Daniel thought she might not survive the night. At other times he feared what might happen if she did. He had locked every door, checked every window, and even pulled the curtains tight. Still he felt exposed. It was as if unseen eyes were watching from the darkness outside. Daniel leaned forward, rubbing his tired face. "What am I doing?" he muttered. He was a man who lived simply, carefully. He worked, paid what bills he could, took care of Emma. He didn't invite strangers into his home, especially not glowing ones. And yet, she was here. The woman stirred. Her glowing eyes flickered open, catching Daniel in their strange light. For a moment he thought she might speak, but she only looked at him. Her gaze was heavy, filled with something he could not name. Daniel swallowed. "You said just one night. That's all I can allow." The woman nodded weakly, but her eyes did not look away. It felt less like she was staring at him and more like she was staring through him, into the pieces of his life he tried to hide. Daniel turned his face uneasy. He stood pacing the room, pretending to busy himself with small tasks. He checked the clock. Almost 1 a.m, the hours stretched like years. Then a sound broke the silence. Not from inside the house. From outside, Daniel froze. He listened. The sound was faint, like a low hum, steady and unnatural. He went to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to peek through. At first, he saw nothing. The street was empty, quiet. But then on the horizon, a light moved slowly across the sky. Not like an airplane. Not like any star he had seen. It pulsed as if alive. Daniel's chest tightened. He whispered, "What the hell is that?" Behind him, the woman's voice came soft and low. "They are searching." Daniel spun around. "What do you mean, searching?" "Who?" The woman didn't answer. She only closed her eyes again, as if the weight of her words was too much. Frustration boiled inside Daniel. He wanted answers. He wanted to know what danger he had allowed into his home. But each time he looked at her fragile form, something held him back. He sat again, his head heavy with questions. Minutes passed. The hum outside faded. The night grew still once more. Then footsteps. Daniel's heart jumped. The sound was soft but clear, moving across his porch. He stood quickly, his body stiff with fear. The woman's eyes opened again, glowing faintly in the dark. "Do not answer," she whispered. Daniel's pulse raced. Whoever it was stopped at the door. A long silence followed. Then a gentle knock, different from hers. Knock, knock. Daniel's breath caught. He moved quietly, standing in front of the door, his body tense. The knock came again, this time sharper. He whispered almost to himself, "Who are you people?" The old woman struggled to sit up, her voice trembling but urgent. "Not people. Not like you." Her words sank into him like ice. He looked at the door, then back at her. Every instinct told him to open it, to demand answers from whoever was outside. But when he reached for the knob, her voice cut through the silence. "If you open that door, you will not see your daughter again." Daniel froze. His hand dropped. His stomach turned cold. The stranger's glowing eyes held his in a grip of iron. For the first time, he believed her. The knocking stopped. Whoever was outside did not wait. Slow footsteps moved away, fading into the night. Daniel stood there in silence, his body shaking. He turned back to the woman, whispering harshly, "What have you brought here? What is this?" The old woman leaned back, her breathing shallow. "It has begun," she whispered. "And you chose to be part of it when you opened the door." Daniel's knees felt weak. He sat heavily, running his hands through his hair. He wanted to deny it, to call her mad, to believe this was some nightmare. But outside, the strange light still pulsed faintly on the horizon. He looked at Emma's door, closed and quiet. His heart ached. He wanted only to protect her, to keep her safe from the world. But now his world had changed. The woman closed her eyes again, whispering words in her strange tongue. Daniel couldn't understand them, but they carried weight like prayers or warnings. The glow from her skin dimmed further, and she fell into a deep, uneasy sleep. Daniel sat in the dark, listening to the silence of the house. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't think. His mind was filled with questions, but one thought echoed louder than all others. By morning, nothing would be the same, and deep inside, he feared the truth. The stranger had brought secrets with her, and secrets never stayed quiet for long. The first gray light of dawn crept into the house. Daniel had not slept at all. He sat at the table, his face pale and his eyes hollow. Every sound of the night replayed in his head. The hum in the sky, the knock at the door, the strange words from the woman. Emma was still asleep, safe in her room, just as the stranger had promised. For that, Daniel was grateful. But he couldn't shake the truth. Their lives had already changed. The woman stirred at last. Her glowing eyes blinked open, softer in the weak morning light. She looked even older now, her shoulders bent, her hands trembling as though the night had stolen what little strength she had left. Daniel leaned forward. His voice was sharp, but beneath it was fear. It's morning. Now you talk. No more silence. No more games. Who are you? And what are you running from? The woman's gaze lingered on him. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered, I am no longer who I once was. My name does not matter. What matters is what follows me. Daniel's fist clenched. Last night you said they were searching. Who? What are they? The woman's lips pressed together. She seemed to fight with herself as though each word cost her strength. Finally she spoke. They are hunters, not of animals, not of gold. They hunt knowledge. They hunt power, and I carry something they want. Daniel shook his head. Hunters? From where? What are you talking about? Her glowing eyes lifted to the window. Outside, the world was waking. Birds sang, the street slowly filled with light. Yet her words turned the morning cold. They are not from this place, not from this world. For many years I have hidden, crossing skies and shadows. I thought I could escape. But last night they found me again, and now they will look here. Daniel felt the ground tilt beneath him. His throat went dry. You're saying, they'll come here? To this house? The woman's silence was answer enough. Daniel's hand slammed against the table. I have a daughter! I can't let anything happen to her. His voice cracked with desperation. If danger follows you, you need to leave. Right now. The woman's eyes softened. For the first time, her voice carried sorrow. Not only exhaustion. If I leave, they will still come. Once they sense my trail, they do not stop. Your home has already been marked. The danger is here, whether I stay or not. The words struck Daniel like a hammer. His stomach turned cold. He looked at Emma's closed door, his mind racing. He wanted to scream, to throw this stranger out, to undo the moment he opened the door last night. But it was too late. The woman leaned closer, her glowing eyes burning faintly. Listen to me. You must not trust anyone who comes. Not men in uniforms, not neighbors who ask questions. Once they arrive, they will look like anything, wear any face. But their goal is one thing, me. Daniel's hand shook. Why you? What do you have that they want? Her thin fingers traced the silver lines on her skin. I carry memory, a piece of what was lost long ago, a secret that could change worlds. In the wrong hands, it will not just end me, it will end many. Perhaps even your people. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Daniel tried to breathe, but each breath came short. He stared at her, trying to understand. You expect me to believe all this? He asked. Aliens, hunters, secrets? I'm just a man. A factory worker, a father. Why would you bring this to my door? Her answer was soft but cut deep. Because sometimes the strongest shields are the ones no one expects. They search for warriors, for armies, for power. They do not look at the quiet man who struggles only to protect his child. That is why I came. Because you are unseen. And because you would open the door. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to deny it, to push it all away. But deep inside something stirred. The truth of her words touched him. He was no hero. He was just a father. But a father who would fight for his child with everything he had. The woman's gaze did not soften. You must choose now. Send me away and pray they do not return. or keep me here and stand in a storm that will not spare you." Daniel turned to the window. The street looked normal, quiet, harmless. But in his gut he felt the change. The world outside was no longer safe. He whispered almost to himself, "I never wanted this. I never asked for this." The woman's reply was almost kind. "None of us ask for the storms we face, but we face them or we fall." For a long time, the only sound was the ticking clock. Daniel stared at Emma's drawings on the wall, bright colors of a world simple and happy. He wished he could protect that world forever, but reality had already broken in. At last, he looked back at the woman. His voice was firm, though fear still trembled inside. "One thing you must understand. If any of this touches my daughter, if she's put in danger, then storm or not, I'll fight. I'll fight to the end." The woman bowed her head slowly, as though she had been waiting for those words. "Then," she said softly, "the storm has already chosen you." Outside, far beyond the waking street, a low hum stirred again in the distance, and this time, it was coming closer. The morning did not bring peace. It only brought fear. Daniel tried to keep the day normal for Emma. He made her breakfast, burnt toast, runny eggs, a small glass of milk. Emma didn't notice the difference. She hummed to herself, swinging her legs as she ate, but Daniel's eyes kept drifting to the window, scanning the street, searching for shadows that didn't belong. The old woman, his strange guest, sat quietly in the living room. Her glowing eyes were dim in the daylight, but they still held that strange weight. She watched Emma with a softness that unsettled Daniel, though the girl didn't seem afraid. In fact, she seemed drawn to her like a child to a grandmother. But Daniel had no time for comfort. His mind raced. The woman's warning still echoed in his head. They can wear any face. They will come. And then, as if the morning wanted to test those words, it began. It started with a sound, distant but clear. A hum, low and steady, rolling over the houses like a wave. Daniel stiffened. His fork clattered against the plate. Emma blinked. "Daddy, what's that noise?" Daniel forced a smile. "Nothing, sweetheart, just maybe a plane." But even as he said it, his gut twisted. That was no plane. The woman's voice came from the living room, calm but sharp. "They are near." Daniel's chest tightened. He stood, moving quickly to the window. Outside, neighbors were stepping onto their porches, looking at the sky. The hum grew louder, vibrating in his bones. And then he saw it. A light, bright, unnatural, slid slowly across the clouds. Not like the sun, not like an aircraft. It pulsed in patterns, alive and deliberate. Daniel's breath caught. "Oh, God." Emma's eyes widened, but before she could ask again, the old woman spoke with quiet urgency. "You must hide me." Daniel spun to face her. "Hide you? Where?" "This is a small house. If they can track you through the sky, how can hiding help?" Her gaze burned into him. "They see what they want to see. You must shield me at least until night falls. Only then can I move again." Daniel's mind raced. His heart thundered. He thought of the basement, small, damp, filled with old boxes. It wasn't much, but it was something. He grabbed Emma's hand. "Sweetheart, go pack your school bag quickly." Emma frowned. "Why?" "School's not..." "Just do it," he said, sharper than he meant. The girl nodded and ran to her room. Daniel turned to the woman. "You can't stay here out in the open, come." She rose slowly, her movements heavy with age and exhaustion. But when Daniel offered his arm, she shook her head. She moved on her own, proud even in her weakness. Together they went to the basement door. Daniel pulled it open, the hinges groaning. The air below was cold, damp, smelling of earth and dust. Old furniture, tools, and boxes cluttered the corners. It was not safe. It was not clean. But it was hidden. The woman stepped down carefully, her glowing eyes dimming further in the shadows. Daniel followed, his stomach tight with dread. "Stay here," he said. "I'll keep the door closed. No one will know." The woman sat on an old crate, folding her hands. "They will search. But remember, any face. Do not trust." Daniel clenched his fists. "I won't let them near my daughter." He climbed the stairs quickly, closing the basement door. Just as he did, there was a sharp knock at the front door. "Knock, knock." Daniel froze. His heart leapt into his throat. The knock came again, harder. Emma stepped into the hallway, her bag in hand. "Daddy, someone's here." Daniel's voice was low, urgent. "Go to your room now. Don't come out until I say." Emma obeyed, though confusion clouded her face. She disappeared into her room, closing the door softly. The knock turned into a voice, deep, steady, almost too calm. "Mr. Daniel Carter?" Daniel's blood ran cold. They knew his name, the voice continued. "We are with federal security. There has been unusual activity in the area. We need to check your property for your safety." Daniel's grip tightened on the doorknob. Federal security. Maybe it was true. Maybe they were here to help. But the woman's warning echoed in his skull, and he faced. Do not trust, he did not open. "Come back later," he shouted through the door. "We're fine." Silence. Then the voice again, colder this time. "Sir, this is a matter of national safety. We will come in if you do not comply." Daniel's heart pounded. He backed away from the door, every muscle ready to act. His eyes darted to Emma's room, then to the basement. Trapped, no way out. The knob rattled. Then, boom! The door shook under a heavy blow. Daniel stumbled back, fear surging like fire in his chest. A second boom followed, the wood cracking. Whoever was outside was not waiting anymore. Daniel ran to Emma's room, pulling her close. "Stay behind me," he whispered, his voice fierce. Another crash. The door splintered, the lock snapping, and then with one final strike, the door flew open. Light poured in, blinding, unnatural. Shadows shifted against the walls, long and inhuman. Daniel's breath caught. The chase had begun. The door lay broken on the floor, shattered wood and bent metal scattered across the hallway. Daniel stood frozen, his arms wrapped protectively around Emma. His chest rose and fell in quick, sharp breaths. But no soldiers entered. No men in black suits stormed inside. Instead, the blinding light outside dimmed, leaving only silence. It was as though whoever had struck the door wanted to frighten him first, to remind him he was not safe. Daniel held Emma tighter. She buried her face against his chest, trembling. He whispered softly, "It's all right, sweetheart. Daddy's here." But he didn't believe his own words. A faint sound drifted from below, from the basement. The old woman's voice, weak but firm. "Bring her to me. Both of you, now." Daniel hesitated. The last thing he wanted was to drag his daughter closer to the stranger who had brought this nightmare. But the silence outside pressed against him, and something deep in his bones told him the only answers lay below. He guided Emma carefully down the basement steps. The air was damp, cool, carrying the smell of dust and earth. The old woman sat on the crate where he had left her, her glowing eyes brighter now as though the danger outside had awakened her. When she saw Emma, her lips curved in a small, sad smile. "The child has courage," she whispered. "She does not fear me. That will matter." Daniel stepped forward, anger sharpening his voice. "No more riddles. No more warnings. You tell me now, who are you and why are they here?" The woman's gaze shifted to him. For a long moment she was silent. Then slowly she raised her trembling hand. The silver lines on her skin glowed brighter, casting faint light across the basement walls. "I am one of the last of my kind," she said. "Once, long ago, my people lived among the stars in peace. We were not warriors. We were keepers. Keepers of knowledge, of memory, of power hidden deep within worlds. We guarded it because we knew what would happen if it was misused." Her voice grew heavier as though carrying centuries. "But peace does not last. Others rose, greedy and strong. They hunted us one by one until few remained. We scattered, hiding across galaxies. I ran farther than most, searching for a place they would not look." Daniel frowned. "And you chose here? Earth, my house?" The woman nodded. "Your world is small, quiet, unnoticed. They do not yet see your people as a threat. That is why I came. But last night, when you opened the door, their trail found me again. Now they know." Daniel's stomach tightened. "You still haven't told me what you're carrying. Why risk all this? Why come here?" The woman lowered her hand to her chest. Her eyes dimmed, but her voice was steady. "Because I carry the memory seed, a fragment of my people's legacy. It is no weapon. It is knowledge. Knowledge of stars, of power, of creation itself. In the right hands, it could build a world of peace. In the wrong hands, it could end countless lives. That is why they hunt me. To them, it is a prize. To me, it is a curse." Daniel stared at her, the words pressing down like a storm. "And you brought it into my house. You put my daughter in the middle of this?" The woman's gaze softened, though sorrow lingered in her eyes. "I brought it here because I saw you. A man with nothing left but love for his child. A man unseen, unnoticed, forgotten by the world. That is the kind of shield I needed. That is the kind of strength they will not expect. Daniel shook his head. I'm no shield. I'm just a father trying to keep his daughter safe. Her faint smile held a trace of warmth. And that, Daniel, is the strongest shield of all. Emma tugged gently at her father's sleeve. Daddy, she whispered, she's not lying. I can feel it. Daniel looked down at his daughter, her wide eyes glowing with innocence. He wanted to deny it, to tell her she was wrong. But deep inside, he felt it too. The woman's words carried truth, a weight heavier than lies. Before he could reply, the low hum outside returned, louder this time. The basement walls seemed to vibrate with it. Dust fell from the ceiling. The woman's glowing eyes turned sharp. They are closing in. They will not wait much longer. Daniel's fear twisted into something else, anger. He stood tall, holding Emma close. Then tell me what I'm supposed to do. How do I protect her? How do I fight them? The woman looked at him for a long moment, then reached out her trembling hand. You cannot fight them, as they are. But you can choose. The memory seed cannot stay with me much longer. My body fails. If I fall, they will find it, unless... Her eyes shifted to Emma. Daniel's heart stopped. No, absolutely not. The woman's voice was calm. The child is pure, untouched by fear. The seed would not harm her. In her, it would sleep, hidden where none would think to look. They would search for years and never suspect. She could carry it safely until the time was right. Daniel's throat burned. The thought of his little girl carrying something so dangerous, being part of something so vast. It was unbearable. He pulled Emma closer. She's a child. She's not your savior. I won't let you use her. The old woman did not argue. She only whispered. Then decide quickly, for they are almost here. The hum outside grew into a roar. Strange lights flashed against the small basement window, shadows stretching long and sharp across the walls. Daniel's breath came fast. His heart pounded. He held Emma tight, his mind racing, the woman's glowing eyes fixed on him one last time. The choice is yours. But if you do nothing, the storm will take you all. The basement shook as something heavy landed outside, and in that moment, Daniel knew. The truth had been revealed, but the hardest part was yet to come. The basement shook with every passing second. Dust rained from the ceiling. The hum outside had become a roar, steady and merciless like the beating of war drums. Daniel held Emma tight against his chest. She clung to him, her small hands gripping his shirt, her wide eyes filled with fear. The old woman sat straight now, her glowing eyes blazing brighter than ever. The weakness that had weighed her down seemed burned away by urgency. They are here, she whispered. You must choose now, Daniel's heart thundered. His body trembled, but not from fear alone. He was cornered, torn between two impossible choices. Give up the alien and maybe save his daughter, or stand against something he did not understand and risk everything. Above them, the front door creaked. Heavy footsteps entered the house. More than one. The sound of boots striking wood echoed through the rooms. Whoever or whatever had come was inside. Emma whimpered. Daddy, I'm scared. Daniel bent his head close to hers, his voice soft but fierce. I've got you. I won't let them take you. The woman's voice cut through the moment, sharp and urgent. If they find me, we all fall. If they find the seed, your world ends before it begins. But if the child carries it, they will never know. She will be safe, hidden, invisible to them. Daniel turned on her, his voice a hiss. Safe? You're asking me to put my daughter in the middle of your war. Her glowing eyes held no apology. Only truth. She is already in it. You all are. The storm is here, Daniel. You cannot shut it out. The basement door above creaked. Shadows shifted across the crack at the edges. A deep voice echoed down the stairs. Daniel Carter, we know you are here. Bring us what belongs to us, and no harm will come to your child. The words were calm, but the tone was wrong. Too smooth, too practiced. Emma clung tighter to her father. Daniel's pulse hammered. His mind raced. The hunters could take any form. They could wear any face. He couldn't trust their promises. He couldn't trust anyone but himself. The old woman lifted her trembling hand. In her palm, a faint light gathered, swirling like liquid silver. It pulsed softly, beating like a tiny heart. The sight froze Daniel in place. He knew instantly this was it. The memory seed. The thing everyone wanted. Her voice was steady. Take it, decide who carries it. Me and I die soon. You and they will tear you apart to find it. Or the child and she lives free, unseen until the day the world is ready. Emma's eyes were wide. Daddy, what is it? Daniel knelt before her, his hands on her shoulders. His voice shook. It's something dangerous, sweetheart. Something too big for us. The footsteps grew louder. The basement door rattled under force. Emma looked at the glowing seed, then at her father. But maybe it's not too big for us together. Daniel's heart broke. She was only 7. She should have been drawing pictures, laughing in playgrounds, dreaming of silly things, not this. Never this, but there was no time left. The door above cracked, splinters falling down. Voices hissed, strange and inhuman beneath the human words. Daniel's hands shook as he turned back to the woman. If she carries it, if I let this happen, what then? Does she suffer? The woman shook her head. She will feel nothing. To her it will be like a dream she never remembers. But one day, when the world needs it, the seed will awaken. Daniel's breath came fast, his chest tight. He looked at Emma. Her small, brave eyes stared back at him, full of trust. She whispered, "It's okay, Daddy. I'm not afraid." Tears blurred his vision. He pressed his forehead to hers. "You're stronger than me, kiddo. Stronger than anyone I've ever known." The basement door exploded open with a crash. Shadows spilled down the stairs, long and sharp, inhuman. Figures began to descend, their eyes gleaming with cold hunger. Daniel stood. His back straightened, his jaw set. He turned to the woman and gave a single, sharp nod. "Do it." The woman opened her hand. The glowing seed lifted into the air. Weightless, pulsing like a star. It drifted forward, then sank gently into Emma's chest. She gasped, but did not cry. The light vanished into her, leaving only stillness. The woman's eyes dimmed, her body slumping as though her purpose was complete. "It is done," she whispered. Daniel turned to the stairs. The hunters were almost at the bottom, their shapes twisting, faces shifting. He pulled Emma behind him, his eyes burning with fury. "You want her? You'll have to go through me first." The figures hissed, their forms flickering with unnatural light. But Daniel did not back down. He was only a man, only a father. Yet in that moment he was more, because he had chosen, because he had something worth more than fear. The hunters paused, their gleaming eyes fixed on him. For the first time they seemed uncertain, and in that silence, in that heartbeat, humanity's story began to change.